presenting will be Katie Anthus, the Commissioner of Education. And if you, after they will go through talking, if you have questions, there's a raise your hand button. Hit that, and then I can unmute you, and you can ask your question. Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to do our first launch of our toolkit for planning the 2020-2021 school year. So appreciate you all being here. We have been working together with district leaders and our colleagues at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to help our school districts plan for launching the 2020-2021 school year this August. I really want to thank our partners at CDPHE and to all of the superintendents for helping us think through this first set of draft guidance. You know, undoubtedly, we know that school will look different this coming year. There will be a whole new set of protocols and priorities that schools will put in place in order to minimize the spread of COVID-19. It's really important to know that this is draft planning guidance. It's a framework and it's a toolkit for school and district leaders as they think through their plan for August. It's really designed to provide a set of options, guidelines, and ideas or considerations to help our schools effectively get ready for these new protocols or priorities this coming fall. Really, the top priority in the toolkit is to keep students and educators healthy. But at the same time, we know we need to make sure our children keep learning. In-person learning at school is so important. It provides structure and relationships for our children, and it also supports our working parents in their need to return to their jobs. Again, this toolkit is striving to keep healthy and safety at the forefront while helping families return to more typical routines and helping our students get back into learning environments. That's really very critical. The version of the toolkit we're releasing today is a draft and a working document. It's very purposefully not done and not complete. While we've been looking across other countries and states and collaborating with superintendents, the Department of Public Health, and other stakeholders to develop this current draft, we are looking forward to now getting broader feedback on the toolkit and refining it in the coming months. We are calling this a toolkit because we know that different districts are going to need to use different tools depending on their circumstance, and that will evolve over the summer months as well. This is really a series of options and considerations for districts to think about. It's also important to remember, as you all know, that this is an evolving situation with the virus still being active in our communities. So the school year will be affected by public health orders, the COVID-19 incidence rate of new cases, and any progress that our medical community makes on treatment. We really hope that we can have more detailed data and information by community so that regional approaches can be implemented and there does not need to be a one-size-fits-all approach. In addition to this toolkit, we are forming an advisory committee made up of a broad group of education stakeholders, including district leaders, teachers, district staff, parents, students, and others. That group will help us refine this toolkit over the next few months. We will also be vetting this toolkit through all of our normal feedback channels that we use at CDE. We meet with many groups on a regular basis, and we will continue to do that as well. We also have a feedback form to make it easy for anyone, parents, students, teachers, anyone who cares about education, to provide us with their thoughts and ideas, and we'll show you where that feedback link is when Rhonda Hannaford goes through the website. And of course, the State Board of Education. They are our elected leaders charged with overseeing education in Colorado. And they'll be weighing in with feedback they hear from their constituents, as well as broad priorities for schools and districts as we move forward. So again, you're going to see that the toolkit includes sort of categories of things. They're going to include some requirements that will likely be dictated by public health orders, and those will need to come over time. Guidelines and questions and issues districts should take into consideration as they plan in their local community. We know that requirements may change as the situation evolves over the summer, and as we learn what measures need to be in place to highlight staff and student safety. We have sections detailing operations like health screenings, passing periods, cafeteria operations, buses, as well as how to ensure the continuity of learning through a blended approach to in-person and online instruction. We know we have to be nimble and have lots of options for next year as next year unfolds. So again, we will revise this over the coming months as we receive feedback and as we learn more. So appreciate you all being here. I'm going to turn this over to Rhonda Hannaford, one of our associate commissioners for school quality. Rhonda?
Thank you. And Dana is going to share her screen so we can have access to the website. Okay, so the toolkit consists of 5 areas, and you'll see them listed over on the right-hand side. The first is health and safety. We have a continuity of learning category, conditions for learning, planning and communication, and a policy and funding category. We have also provided additional resources and tools and checklists to assist districts and schools as they develop their fall plans. So first, we're going to start within our health and safety category. Within this category, you'll find school decision trees that are provided to guide schools through the process of opening safely and knowing how to respond if a COVID-19 case is confirmed in the school. The health and safety section also provides requirements, guidance, and considerations for how to protect the safety of students and educators. Guidance for cleaning and disinfecting is provided in addition to safety protocols for classrooms, hallways, cafeteria, recess, drop-off and pickup, and so much more. So the health and safety information that is in this category was then applied to the continuity of learning section. I have Dana go up to the continuity of learning. Okay, and here's where districts may find guidance to plan for different opening scenarios, including a remote learning approach, an in-person approach, a physically distanced approach. We know that at this point, we have to look at different opportunities and different scenarios for our schools and districts to consider, not knowing what the data will be in the future. And so we've also provided guidance on how to toggle between remote learning and in-person learning if rolling starts and stops occur to in-person learning. Our next category is conditions of learning. In this section, we focus the guidance on supporting student and staff well-being and connectedness, as well as supporting students' different learning needs. The next category is called planning and communication. This category provides guidance on ways to support staff, students, and families over the summer to assist with a smoother fall opening plan. This section also includes information about the school calendar and food service program. And the last category is the policy and funding section. Within it, you can find information about a number of new funds that are available to support fall opening implementation and policy information connected to instructional time and student count days. So as our commissioner shared, this is very much a living website that will change based on updated data that we receive, as well as feedback that we receive from the field and many others who care about education. We have worked closely with CDPHE to prepare the toolkit and guidance, and I would like to invite our CDPHE partner, Therese Pilinetti, CDPHE's Institutions and Emerging Programs Unit Manager, to share a few words.
Thank you, Katie and Rhonda. I appreciate being invited to speak today. As Rhonda mentioned, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has worked very closely with the Department of Education on portions of the guidance pertaining to health. The draft toolkit closely follows current recommendations from CDC and is aligned with executive and public health orders and guidance for other sectors such as childcare and public spaces. It is important, again, to keep in mind there are a lot of unknowns about the virus and the pandemic. These guidelines are very much a living document that will likely change as we learn more. However, we felt districts deserved a scalable, adaptable framework in order to plan for the coming school year. To highlight a few important points, we have provided guidance for staggering schedules, as has been mentioned, with a mix of in-person and online learning to assure physical distancing and to protect vulnerable students and staff. We've included recommendations for staggering mealtime and passing periods and keeping groups of students together to minimize exposure to possible asymptomatic cases. In addition, the guidance includes recommendations for symptom screening, isolation of those with symptoms, and those who test positive, as well as quarantine for those who may have been exposed. We are including easy to understand steps for cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, supporting and encouraging hand hygiene, and respiratory etiquette. The toolkit is designed to be used for districts throughout the state. However, we know that the context could be very different across diverse communities. So we do urge districts to work closely with their local health departments to fine-tune their own plans.
Hi, thank you. So this is Jeremy again from CDE, and now is question time. So there should be a bar on your screen. There's a hand. If you have a hand, put the hand up, and I already see one. So then once I call on you, you have to unmute yourself, okay? So Yesenia has a question.
Hi, this is Yesenia from Chalkbeat. So my first question is about the flexibility and the guidance. A lot of this is, like you said, optional and things for districts to just consider as they're making their plans. So can you talk about the pros and cons of having this kind of patchwork of guidance for districts?
Sure, thank you, Yesenia. Appreciate the question. You know, our districts in the state of Colorado, as you know, have a lot of authority over how they run their systems. And we do know, as Therese mentioned, there's a diversity of communities across our state. And those things really do need to be taken into consideration rather than having a one-size-fits-all approach. That might not work for like Denver public schools versus a really small rural community in the Eastern Plains. So the approach we took was to have sections of the toolkit where we will highlight if there are any requirements that all districts must follow. We will put that in the requirement section. Then there will be a consideration section and a guidance section. And so there are definitions for each of those sections. And we hope that that bridges the gap between having a complete patchwork, but also providing some consistency and some things to think about across our diverse communities.
Okay, it looks like Debbie Kelly has a question. If you can unmute yourself.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have two questions. Thank you. The first is this for both private and public schools?
Yes, thank you. We do think it will be useful for both private and public schools because this is anywhere where students and teachers gather. So we do think that there may be some requirements that are related to public school policy that might not specifically apply to private school policy. But for the most part, this will be very beneficial to both public schools and private schools.
Thank you. And my second question is there any deviation from the CDC guidelines that were released last week nationally for schools reopening?
Thank you. I think I might turn that to Therese at this point.
Sure. Debbie, we are looking very closely at those new guidelines and sort of doing a line by line to assure that they match up. I'm not sure that we've completed that yet. That was sort of a last minute release that we hadn't been expecting, but we are working on aligning those.
Thank you.
I'm muted. Okay, actually, if you don't see how to raise the hand, there's those three little dots. You can click on those, and those will give you your hands. But I do see Lori Gia. Sorry if I mispronounced, but you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, it's Lori Jane Glehoff from Fox 31. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is the bottom line message to parents and teachers? Is school starting in the fall? Is there a chance school's not going to start at all? And what should they really make of this message, this guidance?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. We know that everybody wants that bottom line answer, and we can't give you that full complete answer just yet. We really do need to see how the next several weeks progress in the state of Colorado. Our goal, and I can tell you it's the governor's goal, it's CDPHE's goal, and it's CDE's goal, is to start in-person learning in the fall. But we really need to see how the data progresses, and this toolkit is meant to provide lots of different contingencies and options so that districts can plan for whatever happens in the fall.
Okay, Michael from Fox 31, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thanks. So how far apart do desks need to be in a classroom setting?
Teresa, do you want to take that?
I might actually throw it back to Rhonda, only because I'm not sure where we settled on the very latest draft.
Sure, I'm happy to help. We're keeping right now at the 6 feet measurement. That's the current guidance that we have from CDC. However, I also want to say that we are anticipating different data in the future, and that can change what the ratio looks like inside of a classroom or the distance. And when it's not possible to do some distancing, there are things such as wearing masks that can be in place also.
Okay, Jenny Brundine has a question. If you want to raise or unmute yourself.
Yes, I wondered, I noticed one of the requirements said that there should be a designated person in a school to, assist a child maybe that has symptoms of COVID. And I wondered, do all schools right now have this kind of person? Because I know all schools don't have a nurse.
Thank you. We actually have our state nurse on the phone with us, Sarah Blumenthal. Sarah, would you like to take that?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. And I know most schools don't have a full-time nurse in Colorado. However, they have access to a school nurse who in consultation can guide that practice. And currently they train unlicensed personnel, just meaning that they are not licensed as a nurse, to take care of the sick and injured. And the COVID piece would be part of that protocol as well. So if the nurse wasn't there on site, they would be helping guide that practice moving forward with the COVID procedures.
Okay, I see some folks who are just still raising their hand. If you can go, there's a little 3 dots and you see the hand. You don't have it. Well, I do see Addie. Addie is trying to ask a question. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
I know it's a little bit early on, but when we're looking at the capacity, when you're putting students 6 feet apart from their desks, I mean, how many students can you actually have in person? And how do you stagger really those schedules? I mean, when I was in middle school, schedules were kind of all over the place, so we could get a little bit of information on that.
Sure, thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're going to have to use a hybrid of different options depending on where the guidance finally lands, so we can determine how many students can be in one classroom. But we do have that in the toolkit about staggering schedules. And again, our districts are going to have to decide what works best for them, and they do have the authority to determine this. If they would want students coming in on a Schedule A and a Schedule B to essentially have the number of students who are in the building at one time. But that is all to be evolving over these next several months, and really in partnership with our local districts, because they're going to know what's going to work best for them based on the number of students they have.
And I guess I just wanted to reiterate, I mean, how do you even make a decision like that? How do you decide what students can and what students can't? Because that's going to be ultimately a lot of pressure for parents if they have a job.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it really is going to be a challenge. I wish I could say that it's not, but there are lots of different options and considerations we've put in here about considering if you need at-risk students more in-person learning, you may need to prioritize those, or younger students who maybe don't do as well online or remotely. So really, again, this is going to be best decided at the local level, because they're going to know what their student population is, and they're going to know who needs the most intensive in-person learning.
Hi, Catherine Eastman has a question. If you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering, how will you ensure, we know that there are already kids that have not yet logged on for remote learning. How will you ensure that those kids don't get lost if there continues to be remote learning in the fall?
Yeah, thank you. That is something that we are incredibly concerned about too, and I know that our district partners are also concerned about that. We are working, and our districts are working on trying to, find as many students as possible and understand where they've gone, if they're just having trouble logging on or if they've moved. So that's going to be a lot of work over the summer. But while we're working and doing everything we can to find all of those students, there may be some that have moved out of the community or have left the state. So we may not be able to track down every single one of those students. I don't know if Rhonda has anything to add to that.
I think that was very well said. It is a very complex situation. We do provide some guidance and some considerations in the document around how to make connections with students who might not be responding very well to remote learning, how to change that environment for them, and how to prioritize them for additional context for in-person learning.
And I have one more question. Will there be any kind of monitoring of districts if some people feel like they're not following best practices? If parents or teachers are concerned, what kind of monitoring could there be?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good point. We haven't actually dug in that far yet. I think just like everybody, this is the first time we've ever done anything like this, and our districts have done anything like this. So we're going to have to look at what the health requirements are and work with our districts. My approach to all of this is to work in partnership with districts and to help them get where they need to be, in lieu of sort of monitoring or compliance. We hope to work in partnership to get everybody to where they can implement this safety guidance as appropriate.
Okay, there's a question from Tori Mason, and I see Yesenia and Jenny also have questions. So we'll go to Tori, if you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, regardless of how good the data might be in each district by August, is the expectation right now that students will need to wear masks when they return?
Thanks. That's a good question, and it is the thing we probably hear the most about. Concerns either way. Concerns about having students wear masks or concerns about not having students wear masks. We are going to have to see how this evolves over the coming months and what we learn about students wearing masks. Right now, it is a recommendation in the CDC, and so it is a recommendation in our toolkit, but we will continue to monitor that situation and think about how students use masks, and so where that will fall under either a guideline or a consideration or a requirement.
Okay, Yesenia, you've been waiting for a while. Go ahead.
Thanks. This second question is, there has been a strong reaction against the idea of having children only go to school 1 day a week or on these alternating schedules. Does CDE have suggestions for how children could go to school more than 1 day a week while still adhering to the restrictions on group sizes?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to turn that to you, Rhonda. Tough question. I'll give it to you.
Well, we do have guidance and provided some different scenarios around how to stagger A and B schedules. And within that, there's a hybrid model, which provides for, depending on the district, 2 days a week. It could be 3 days a week, again, depending on the district, for in-person learning. But within that, there's also variations where an entire group of students, let's say group A, comes for 1 full week of instruction while group B is remote for that week, and then they flip the following week. So as you have a chance to go through that information, you'll see some ideas that school districts were generating that we included inside of our document for others to see. And there will be some school districts that will have a smaller population, and some of our rural friends have shared that they have plans where it's much more feasible for all of their students to return to in-person learning, that they can spread them out, while other districts have thought about having the younger students return while secondary students remain remote. And then alongside that, though, there are many secondary students who benefit and need in-person learning. So there's not a one size fits all. It's really up to the district and that local community to decide what is going to be best for their specific circumstances.
Okay, Jenny Brundeen has another question.
Yes, I'm wondering if you anticipate some school districts will have to open up contracts with teachers, especially if there's staggered learning and it requires much different times than is in their contract right now.
Yeah, thank you. We strongly encourage that all districts, as they're planning for next year, that they're including their teachers and including their staff and their parents in that discussion. So we think that that's an important piece of this. Contracts are so district by district that there is a chance, but I wouldn't want to speak too broad brush on if they would need to open their contract, but that is something that I think they should take a look at and consider, depending on what options they're going to move forward on.
Okay, do we have any more? I think we may, no, we have some more. Erica from Colorado Sun has a question.
Great, thank you. I'm wondering, what are you telling districts who may have to make serious changes to their classrooms for class sizes this fall while they face significant budget cuts?
Yeah, it's a challenging situation they're in. We are glad that the last infusion of CARES Act money was able to get out to districts last week. So we're very hopeful that that will help support them in their planning and in the implementation, at least through their first semester. So we're very hopeful about that. But I also know that our districts and our schools, while they face great challenges, they're also incredibly nimble and problem solvers, and they will do whatever it takes to support our students and our families. And so while it is a challenge, and I won't sugarcoat that, I know that that's not stopping them from planning for the start of the 2021 school year.
Michael from Fox 31 has another question.
Yeah, thank you. Two quick ones. Saw some pictures out of South Korea of plexiglass barriers around desks. Is that something that is being considered as a requirement or a recommendation at this point? And then also with the 6 feet distancing, is that right now a requirement or is that a recommendation?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll turn this to you, Rhonda.
We don't have any recommendations around plexiglass at this time. That hasn't been brought as an option. I guess technically it could become an option if a school or district wanted to pursue that path, but it's not within the guidance that we're providing. And then the second question around is the 6 feet guidance. It is guidance from CDC. And Therese, you can correct me if you want to add anything.
That's correct, Rhonda.
All right, I don't see any more questions. There's one in chat. Let's see. Addie, do you want to just go ahead and ask that one again? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, so just a couple of questions here. Thank you for your time. How soon will we know if in-person school will start in fall? Can parents expect a notice in mid-June, late July, early August, just because they're going to need that time to prepare? And my second question is, if there is an outbreak at one of these school districts or one of these schools, what is the requirement before they have to shut down?
Yeah. Thank you. I know all of our parents, we hear the frustration and the anxiety, and many of our employees are also parents, so they want to know the answer to this question as well. Unfortunately, we're just not going to have the answer very soon around, if we can start school in the fall as normal or what precautions will be in place. We really need to see what the real data shows. And that will probably be into August, but really that's a decision that our partners at the Department of Public Health, in partnership with the governor, will need to make. And again, that's why we're providing a toolkit. I know it's not as satisfying, but where there's lots of options that we can plan for, and then deploy an option based on what the data says. Then there will be requirements to shut down if there's an outbreak. We have some of those draft ideas in the toolkit right now, but that will also likely evolve as we learn more about the virus and what it will take to sort of clean buildings, sanitize buildings, do quarantines, that sort of thing. But there will be requirements around how to shut down if there is an outbreak.
I just wanted to get really specific. Are we talking about 3 people having to get, or 3 students or staff having to get sick because that's technically required, called an outbreak, or we have to wait to see more?
I think that even if we had 1 student or 1 staff member that tested positive, we would consider there would be guidance around how you would shut down the school, whether that be for a very short amount of time or whether that be for a longer time. So the outbreak definition we are using is the same outbreak definition that the governor and CDPHE use, which is 3 or more.
That looks like maybe it's it. So I appreciate everybody for coming on. We're going to have the website is live, so you can look at the guidance, and any questions you have, you can call me or email me or both. Have a good day.